Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our Autodesk Licensing 101 webcast. My name is Kim Eicher. I'm an application engineer in the AEC market. I am out of our Charlotte, North Carolina office for TPM. I also have Wendy Ruth with me today. She's an account manager on the AEC side. She's in the TPM Greenville, South Carolina location. She will also be keeping an eye on the questions that you all have as they come in via chat. Before we get started, I just want to take a look at a couple things that TPM offers. First of all, some of you may know that we're an Autodesk Gold partner. We're very proud to have our Gold status with Autodesk. This means that in addition to being an authorized training center and having technical specialists in all disciplines, we also are above and beyond that specialized on a consulting level in the following areas. We have reached our specialization in product support, MEP systems engineering, fabrication, simulation, and then civil infrastructure, which we're really proud of. We do have offices in Greenville and Columbia, South Carolina, as well as Charlotte, North Carolina, and Raleigh, North Carolina. So if we take a look at what we're going to cover today in the Licensing 101 webcast, we're going to take a look at the EULA agreement. What is the End User License Agreement? What is in that thing that we agree to every time we install our software? What is the 30-day trial of a product? Where can I find it? And what are the limitations of that, if any? And then we'll look at the two different license types, being standalone and network, and go into details on those. And then some additional features that you may or may not be aware of, including cascading licensing as part of the network license, and then borrowing and transferring licenses, and home use and previous versions. I did throw in at the end of this presentation a slide that I got direct from Autodesk on what are some flags that they see, yellow flags, red flags on license compliance, so we can take a look at those as well and answer questions at the end and along the way. First off, if we talk about the licensing agreement, often referred to as the EULA, you can see it in the lower right-hand corner, and the very first words say "read carefully." A lot of times we don't have time to read that entire document, so I want to pull out the key things that I think you would need to know about that agreement and keep in the back of your mind. So the first one being that it is granting permission for an assigned individual or legal entity to use Autodesk intellectual property within the territory of the end user. And I underlined some of these phrases specifically so we can go into more detail on them. So first one being individual or legal entity. What does that mean? What are the limitations of that? The license grant is to the individual who reads and accepts the software license agreement, or the legal entity for whom the individual accepts that agreement. The license does not extend to the following people: affiliates, which would be partners or subsidiaries, individual contractors or third parties or consultants. This is a big one. The third parties or consultants, especially the more collaborative companies are becoming. If I'm an architecture firm and I want to collaborate on a project with another architecture firm, and it may be just one person in that firm, am I allowed to let them use my software during that time? And the answer, technically, per your EULA or your End User License Agreement, is no. So I wanted to make you aware of that. In addition to that, what is the use limited to? Do I use the software? Do I own the software? Can I sell it? Autodesk grants a license to use, there's that keyword, the software for a fee, which means that the customer does not own the software itself. And that one's a hard one to grasp, or hard one to swallow. When you purchase that software, you feel like you should own it and be able to do what you want with it. But Autodesk software license grants permission that is not exclusive, may not be sub-licensed or transferred, and limits the use to software and user documentation in the defined territory within the scope of the license parameters. Bottom line is the customer doesn't own the software itself. you are granted the permission to use the software for a fee. So that's basically what your end user license agreement is saying. In terms of the territory and end user, most of our customers aren't having to deal with this, but you are only allowed to use that software in the country that it's been purchased in. Unless, of course, there's always an exception. And the exception is unless you've purchased it in this area, in the European Economic Area. And you can see the exception listed there. If it's in that area, the company has the right to use that in the area and Switzerland. We've all seen this picture before, the one that comes up when we've installed a product and we haven't yet put our serial number in, and it's the ticking time bomb, tick tick, all the way down to the end of your 30-day trial. Do you want to activate it or try it? Of course, we always want to activate it as soon as we can. Sometimes, though, we may have a day or two until we get our license or our serial number after we've purchased the product. So we do recommend a lot of times for customers to install the trial. It is a full working version. It can be activated at any time once you have your serial number, as long as it's within that 30 days. It cannot be installed as a network version. So this is the one catch with the trial product. If you know that you have a network license, you can use the trial until you get your serial number, but you will have to reinstall the product to use your network serial number. And then it cannot be installed on a machine more than once. So if you installed a trial now and you went to try and install it after that trial is over, maybe a year from now you wanted to reinstall it, even if that product's been uninstalled, you're not going to be able to rerun the trial with that same product on that computer. Just to give you a heads up as well, a lot of times I get this question or this problem. I just want to make it clear that you want to make sure that you're always installing the correct trial product for the product you wish to activate. Of course, that's the same with regular installs as well, but you cannot install, for example, the Revit architecture product trial and then activate it using a Revit suite serial number after the fact, because of the building design suites, more and more products within that suite are becoming different from the point product or the regular solo product. And then let's talk a little bit about product activation. The key here is Autodesk only requires activation on standalone products. So if you're getting a request for activation, you have installed it standalone. And it's typically an automatic process to get an activation. It's going to look like this. When you go to activate, or when you go to open or launch your product for the first time, you'll see a screen like this that says there's a request code that Autodesk needs so that it knows your exact computer that you're installing this on. So you can say you want to connect now and activate, which is the recommended response. Or if you are having a problem activating or you can't get to the web, you can call Autodesk and get an activation code, but you will always need to give them that request code in order to activate your product. Again, being a standalone product in this case. Autodesk generally allows for a standalone license to be activated 2 times. If you have a situation where you need to get another activation, maybe you have a computer that crashed and you're rebuilding it and now you've got to reinstall that product, you will need to call Autodesk product activation line to get another or request another activation from them. And this is to prevent over-installation of products. So they'll require an explanation of what is happening, and it's just as simple as that. My computer needs to be re-imaged, I need another activation, and so that they know what the reason is. If we look a little bit at serial numbers versus product keys, serial numbers and install types, the 2 main types of serial numbers that you can get are a standalone and a network. And you can see underneath the standalone, the SLM, there is a version of a standalone that's called a multi-seat standalone. And the network license is the NLM, and we'll go into more detail on that here shortly. And then if we take a look at the product keys, the product key is the number that you see next to the serial number, and that product key always has to correlate with the type of product that you have. It's unique to each product, meaning Building Design Suite, Standard, Ultimate, Premium have each their own unique product keys. It changes with every release as well, so from 13 to 14 that product key will change one character usually. So if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right now, next release maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. It does not distinguish, or the product key does not distinguish between network or standalone. It's just about the product. What product are you using and what version of that product are you using? And the key is they implemented the product key when they introduced product suites, so that ultimately if I purchased the Building Design Suite, but maybe I only have time to install AutoCAD architecture from it, I could use the same download that somebody who purchased just regular AutoCAD architecture purchased, and we could use the same install files. The product key will distinguish whether it's from the suite or whether it's from the point product. So standalone licenses are a single seat with they're tied to a single serial number. The license is locked to a single machine. A multi-seat standalone is a single product attached to a single serial number again, but it's worth multiple seats or licenses. The difference here, you can still install it across multiple machines. Once it's installed, that seat is also locked to that machine. So the big difference is installing multiple seats with the one serial number. Network deployment is different because there's a server that's actually holding information about how many licenses there are at any given time, and it actually dishes out or serves out licenses as they're launched or requested. So if a company has one seat of Revit architecture, and they've installed it on 2 computers that we see here, user A launches Revit, and the product goes and asks the server if there's a license available. If there is, the access is granted for that product. If at any point user B tries to launch Revit, the server is going to go and look to see if that license is in use. And as long as that license is in use by user A, user B is not going to be able to open that product. So user A is going to need to close the product before the server or the network license manager will grant access to the product. So some details about network licensing is it's a single product attached to a single serial number, but it's worth multiple seats. The licenses are managed by a server. Now that server could be defined, that server is defined as just any computer that exists on the network that all of the computers can communicate with. So it doesn't need to be a server per se, just a computer that can be accessed on the network. You're limited to concurrent usage. So you're limited to the number of seats that you've purchased to be used at the same time. So I can only use one seat at a time if I bought one license. However, I could install that as many times as I want. So if a customer installs a product on 100 machines, but they own 20 licenses, at any point in time, 20 products will run at the same time. Also, network licensing does provide limited usage reports so you can figure out who is using what product. If we look at kind of how things get installed on the network side, the Autodesk software, which would be Revit in this case, gets installed on the client computers where the software is going to be used. We do not have to install the software, the Autodesk software, on the server. The only thing that gets installed on the server would be a utility to manage licenses, which is called LM Tools, and it looks like this. And then we also have to put on that server a license file that we get from Autodesk, or that you can get direct from Autodesk. Autodesk is the only one who can provide that license file. All the communication happens between the client machine and then that server, but all the Autodesk software gets installed on the client machine. The extra items that you'll need in a network install that you don't need on standalone, they're small items, but they're necessary. So you need the LM Tools utility, which can be found on your install for your product. When you go to install your product, you choose Tools and Utilities, and it will show up there. You also need to retrieve a license file, and to get that license file, you will need your product serial number, the server name, and the server MAC address, and your email so that they can email that to you. Now, if you wanted to do this all via the web, it's quick and easy to do out at registeronce.autodesk.com. You will need to create a login account, but you just provide that same information, serial number, server information, and you don't even need an email because you'll get an instant license file out there. If you don't have access to the internet at the moment, you can also call Autodesk Product Activation. They will give you license files. They will also give you activations that you request as well. Just to give you an idea of what a license file is going to look like, those of you who are already using them know that they can be hard to read. So I wanted to give you this piece of information. This is an example of what a license file looks like coming from Autodesk. It has your server information at the top, and then it has the software information in packages and increments. And so it's in a sort of code that Autodesk uses. And so what we use to better read this or to more easily understand it, and what our customers can use as well, is called a license parser. And so I want to make this available to you. The website is there at the bottom of this slide. You can basically Google this and you'll be able to find it. I even have a video out there for how to use it on YouTube. But the license parser, when we go out to that web page, we browse to our license file. It turns our license file into something that looks like this, that's a lot more easy to read, easy to understand. You get how many seats, what order they're in, what is the product, what is the serial number, and the dates of the creation of that license file. Some additional features that I want to cover with you are the first one being a network license feature. It's called license cascading. And this can be kind of a confusing topic to try and figure out what cascading is actually doing, because it's an automatic process that happens. So I wanted to kind of clarify some things with it. So cascading only applies to network licensing. It's implemented and used for places that have mixed product environments. And it's something that's built into the license file. So the order in which the product is listed in your license file helps drive the order that your product will, quote unquote, cascade in. And what cascading allows is for a product, to obtain a license from a license pool where the license manager is serving more than one product. And what does that mean? It means that lower-end individual product licenses can be used first before retrieving licenses for an expensive suite of products. And the order, like I said, the order in the license file the order in which licenses are launched also determines the way that they get pulled. So to break it down, it looks like this. If my company has 4 seats of Revit Architecture and then a seat of Building Design Suite Premium, which has Revit 1 box, which we'll talk a little bit more about, Revit with all of the disciplines in it. If user A pulls a Revit Architecture seat or launches Revit Architecture, and then user B launches Revit Architecture, but a little while later, user B decides that they need to access 3ds Max Design. 3ds Max Design is part of the Building Design Suite. So now user B has 2 licenses in use, Revit Architecture and Building Design Suite Ultimate. Every 2 minutes, the product communication happens back to the license server, and the license server will determine that user B actually could be using a license of Revit from the building design suite. So after a couple minutes, it will push that lesser product back to the pool and cascade to the building design suite product, leaving more seats available of the lesser product to be used. So that's what cascading is going to look like. Something to note about cascading is just what I had mentioned. When it involves Revit from the suite versus Revit point product, and you have a mixed environment like that, you have to make a decision and you have to weigh your options, because if you install Revit from the suite of products, every time a user opens or launches that, it's using a building design suite license. If you don't want that, if you want the user to actually be pulling Revit from the pool of point product, in other words, using Revit architecture versus Revit, you can do that, but you have to make sure that you've installed Revit point product on all of the computers that use Revit, so that first the point product will get used, and once all the point product is used, then Autodesk will, or then the license manager will cascade up to the building design suite. So if 4 of the point products are in use, on the 5th time somebody pulls a point product for Revit, it'll actually revert to building design suite license. So that's just another thing to keep in mind, and how it will cascade with your Revit products. Something that came up recently and it's not talked really a lot about at all. So that's everything that I just mentioned. And then some additional features with the licensing would be borrowing a network license. Any product that you want to use for an extended period of time, you can do that with a network license, and you can make that basically your license until that date expires or you check that license back in. It's called borrowing, and you can do it with a pool of license at any time. You basically have to connect to a network with the computer, and then access the product, or inside the product you're going to access licensing and the borrow license dialog box. You basically just choose a date in there that you want to borrow the license through, and at that date, once that comes up, it'll automatically push the license back. Or prior to that, you can manually check that license back in. Once you have that license borrowed, though, you can use that whether you're on the network or if you take your laptop home off of the network. With standalone licensing, we have a feature called transferring a license. So we don't borrow a license, but we can transfer a license from one computer to another. So as I mentioned, if you have a computer that you need to change, it either crashed or it got rebuilt, or you just decided to pull it off of somebody's and give it to someone else. The way that Autodesk wants you to handle this is for you to use a transfer license utility, or license transfer utility rather. It's located underneath your Autodesk product, and you can see there it's highlighted, it's license transfer utility. It takes care of, on the web, exporting your license, and it holds on to it on Autodesk servers on the web. And then when you're ready to import it to the new computer, you just go to that new computer, launch the license transfer utility from there, and import that license to your computer. You will need a login, so you'll have to create a login to do this, but this is a proper way to move seats from computer to computer without causing any sort of red flag in terms of activation. Some features of the subscription that comes with your product would be the ability to use at home, so a home use license. If you are on subscription and you want to install the product at home, here are your 2 options. For standalone licenses, there's actually nothing in addition that you need to do to get that access to the home license. For network, because you won't have access to the network license manager at home, you will need to go onto Subscription Center and request a home use license. So if you do that, you go ahead and put your serial number in for your product. They will email you a companion standalone serial number. So at home you'll install the product standalone with this serial number, and that'll be good for 13 months, and it's called a companion license. Another feature of the subscription is the ability to use previous versions. So if you're on subscription with your Autodesk product, you can use up to 3 previous versions. And the 2 different license types and the ways that you request these are listed here. So if you have a standalone license and you need to use a previous release of that, you can request that through Subscription Center. Oops. You can request that through Subscription Center. You're just going to go to Contract Administration and click Previous Versions. You're going to put your current serial number in and the product name and the product that you're requesting, or the version of that product that you're requesting. That can take up to 2 days to receive, so just keep that in mind, but they will email you that companion serial number. With network licenses, all subscription networks have this already built in. So if you have a network license inside your license file, it's already set up to use 3 previous releases. So that means that you can even use that same serial number across all those products. So if you have a 2014 serial number and you need to install 2012, as long as you're on subscription, you can use that same serial number and you'll gain access to that older release of that product. You do have to keep in mind that if you're running 2 different versions of a product, that you're pulling 2 different licenses. Let's talk a little bit about non-compliance and things that Autodesk sees as yellow flags and red flags. This is something that I got direct from Autodesk, so please don't shoot the messenger, but the things that they are looking for, or not looking for, but they will flag, are listed here. So yellow flags: if Autodesk is not the main software, and or they are a former Autodesk customer. Reluctance by a customer to talk to Autodesk or partners. If they're running standalone or multi-seat standalone implementations. The reason that's a flag is because anytime you're using a lot of standalone software, it opens the door for over-installation to happen very easily without it being on purpose or anything that you meant to do. If you're using 2004 version or older, AutoCAD or LT accounts only. If you're not using any software administration management tools, tools that will track usage, in other words. Requests for license report and having unfulfilled quote requests in combination. Multiple locations with multiple managers, decentralized purchasing can also open the door for easy over installation. So Autodesk sees those as yellow flags. Now the red flags are basically some of the things we've talked about: over activating a serial number. If you have the same serial number that's being used multiple times, you do get 2 times on a subscription account to activate a standalone product. Beyond that, it's a red flag. You'll need to call Autodesk and tell them what's going on. If you have invalid serial numbers but no proof of purchase, if you're using not for resale product or beta versions used for production. Educational licenses in use for non-commercial purposes, and I would note also that if educational licenses are being used for commercial purposes, even where profit is not involved, it's for profit or not. Licenses registered to other companies or serving licenses outside of the country it's purchased in. So that's everything that Autodesk either sees as kind of something to look into or severe red flags. These are some frequently asked questions that I just wanted to throw out there so you can keep in the back of your mind, because they're pretty common. You know, what happens if I can't activate, or why can't I activate a product? The first thing that we need to do is make sure that you intended to install standalone. Standalone is the only product license type that requires an activation. If it's network, it's not going to ask you for activation. So did you intend to install standalone? If it still can't activate after you install the correct license type, then you can go ahead and contact us and we'd be glad to help you out troubleshooting that. If I have an invalid serial number, this always means that the serial number being used is not for the product you've installed. It could mean that you installed standalone and the license is for network. It could mean that you downloaded a Revit point product when you really meant to download the Revit one box product from the suite, and your serial number doesn't match what that product is. It doesn't mean that it's always on your end a problem either. It could mean that Autodesk had made a mistake and they think that you have a standalone when really you have a network product. So we need to, at that time, get TPM involved and we can get things squared away with Autodesk if it's on their end. 99% of the time, though, it's an issue of standalone versus network was installed and it's not the right serial number for that. All of the time, it means the wrong serial number for the product is being installed. What if you do install the wrong license type? What will you need to do? If you do install standalone and you meant to install network or vice versa, you will always need to uninstall the product and reinstall it. A little glimmer of brightness on the end of this is if you do have a building design suite and you've installed an entire suite of products as the wrong license type, then you don't have to uninstall all of the product. You can uninstall just one of the products from the suite and reinstall it the correct way, and the rest of the product will follow suit and it will change its license type. So after all of that, how can TPM help? Well, we do offer technical support included with subscription that you have through TPM. That would include standard install questions and problems, serial numbers, questions and issues, errors or problems with the software. If you have questions on how do I do something, we definitely love to help with that as well. We offer consulting time via remote access, or we can come on site. So we would just set that up with your account manager. We do offer training, standard or custom, at all of our locations, and we can come on site or we can do training remotely via the web. It's really what is going to best benefit you. I did want to point out a couple new offerings that we have that are kind of more recent, and they're packaged and ready to go for you. We have created a TPM BIM squad, so we would like to come out and help you get the things done that you don't have time to do in terms of BIM or CAD administrative type things. All of the stuff we talked about today, from network deployments to retrieving license files, combining them, maintaining them, and not limited to licensing, but also helping out with making sure the software is up and running and your standards are in place. That is called our Gold Plan, if you do choose to go with having us come in and do some of these things. And we do include in that Gold Plan priority technical support as well as some discounts on training. And then another one of our packaged items for you is called a BIM tune-up. This is something that we put together because we have customers who have been using Revit or building information modeling for a while, but want to know how to get more out of it. And now that the suites have been out for a while and they're starting to incorporate more products into those suites, how can they leverage everything in that building design suite? So we would like to come out to your office and do an analysis of your BIM workflows and processes so we can help accelerate your business. And then one more thing that I want to make you aware of, you may see this coming in an email form, hopefully, and that is our technology days that we'll be having. We're going to be doing a showcase of building information modeling and a bunch of different topics, also document and print solutions. And those are going to be in the following locations, so Charlotte, Greenville, Columbia, and Charleston. So watch for those coming up in September. Hopefully you'll receive something that looks similar to this to register. If not, you can register at tpm.com/events. If you have any questions or technical support issues, here's our contact information. Thank you for joining us this morning and hope you have a great day. Thanks.